UFO and UAP stories have become such a global phenomenon that government hearings and social media videos on the matter have become a constant. We've explored many encounters and UFO hotspots, but this one stands apart with hundreds of reports every single year. Today, we discuss the home to the most UFO sightings in the world, Bonnybridge. This is Red Web. Welcome back, Task Force, to another episode of Red Web, the podcast all about unsolved mysteries, true crime, and the supernatural. I am your resident mystery enthusiast, begging desperately for proof of aliens so I can stop paying my taxes, Trevor Collins. Joining me hearing this case for the very first time, Alfredo Diaz.
Desperately begging to get No, I'm just kidding. I was like, oh no, I'm gonna hit everyone with that one.
You've been coming at me with just blind sides lately.
Yeah,
and I'm here for it.
I'm just trying to throw the first thing that comes to mind to the both of you and the task force at large, and you just see what happens.
Just saying the quiet part out loud. We're all thinking probes.
I hope if you're using the toilet, you don't drop your phone by accident, or if you're driving, you stay in your lane.
You swerve a little bit.
Yeah, it doesn't take you back too much. I think I've come to really realize that I love sci-fi. I love the science and the space and the monsters and that kind of stuff. And Aliens is up that alley. So I'm excited. I didn't know that this was a place that had the most sightings.
It's a very interesting place too, because it's in Scotland, which I would not have expected, if I'm honest, because the Americas have been such a hot spot for UFOs. But yeah, Bonnybridge in Scotland. So many sightings.
Yeah, I'm curious, as always, the usual questions. What are we seeing? If we are seeing aliens, what are the sizes of their heads and their bodies? Right, it's always a big thing.
What's the vertical leap?
What's the vertical leap? Or what are their abilities? Do they mess with their minds? Do they mess with you? Are they out to learn, teach? Are they evil? Are they the ones that like to, probe? We don't know. These are questions that I would like answered. And yeah, who's to say? It doesn't always have to be the U.S. The U.S. doesn't, the world doesn't revolve around the U.S. So yeah, there's other places could have the most UFO sightings. It doesn't have to be us because we got Roswell.
We got a monopoly.
Yeah, so it's also just why would they just come to the U.S.?
Sure. I love the idea of a Scottish alien being like, oh no, we don't probe here. That's the American aliens, okay?
Yeah. Those guys are wild.
they go buck over there, okay? But here we like to keep it casual. Sit down, have a good tea, maybe some scotch, and then we're on our way. Well, it's one of those lighthearted episodes. It is the season, and each of these episodes the last couple weeks has been kind of emanating that energy. And so I'm excited to dive into this one. But I also want to remind the task force that we will have no new episodes on December 23rd and 30th as we all travel for the holidays.
The offices will be closed, so don't even try to come in, okay?
Right. We just finished some remodels, so we have to tear that down and start a new one.
Yeah, it's gonna be a team in there remodeling again. So when you do come back after the holidays, you might get a little confused because the hallways and the places and the areas your office might be remodeled, moved elsewhere.
Right.
So you gotta figure that out. But what you can do in the meantime is figure out some last minute gift ideas. Red Web Store plus Patreon membership.
It's true.
You can gift the Patreon membership now, gift.redwebpod.com.
You can thrust the joy of a cult that's not a cult onto your family members, your friends,
asking them to
strangers.
Join and partake in the festivities, but not a cult in any way.
No way.
If they are to join, obviously they want to wear the team colors, so store.redwebpod.com. You can get some merch. They can match. We can match. And again, not a cult. More like a team that we do stuff
It's very much, that's a great idea. That's a team.
It's a team.
These are jerseys you can hang from the rafters whenever, we do. It's a team with rituals, okay? And you can sign up.
Sports teams have rituals, Christian.
It's true. You're not wrong.
Ours is like chucking dust up into the air, but instead we gather around a symbol on the ground with a lot of candles.
Yes, we do.
So that's our LeBron-esque move. But right now in the store, we do have, if you want to represent a specific division, we have the PsyOp merch and the Stealth Division merch. Basically just some cool names for some really awesome Task Force merch. We have some hoodies, a shirt, some joggers now as well, so you can complete the whole kit. And some of that is limited.
It's getting cold, you know?
It's getting cold. You got to cover up them ankles, cover up them shins for some reason. That's what I wanted to say.
Buy 2-3 joggers. And you're asking me, Alfredo, why would I need multiple? Well, so the aliens have more to get through before they get to your soft center.
You know what? I'm going to say this. That's relevant to this episode.
It is relevant. I always keep it relevant.
I'm telling you, we're going to get there. Someone's pants
Jesus
get torn
Christ.
asunder.
Okay, buy maybe 4. Maybe 4 and put them all on. Make them work for it.
That is available right now in the store, and some of it is limited. So be sure you get that by December 31st before that goes out of the store, but some of it will stick around for forever. So no worries there. Get yourself some gifts. Again, store.redwebpod.com. But it is the season of giving. It is the Red Web advent of ad-free. It's going on right now every single day this month over on our Patreon. We're uploading a new past episode to the premium ad-free podcast feed exclusively for the Patreon members over at patreon.com/redweb. So if you want more this season, if you want to gift the gift of membership to a friend, you have lots for them to dive into and catch up on. So yeah, we're backfilling 31 days of our past episodes in the ad-free feed for you guys. And with Patreon in mind, I want to give a huge shout out to a bunch of Task Force members to kind of wish a happy holidays. We got Hannah K, Burned Phoenix, Phage, Mitch W, Zarathustra, Sabrina Hall, Alex Tuck, Andy Schrock, and Chase Martinez, to name a few. Thank you all so much for supporting us this holiday season. But with that, Fredo, we gotta dive in. Bonnybridge waits for no one. Bonnybridge, as I mentioned, is a small village in Scotland located almost equidistant between Glasgow and Edinburgh. So per the national records, just to give you an idea of how small this place is, the population as of 2023 is only about 6,000 people. Despite the town's small size, Bonnybridge is considered to be the place with the most UFO sightings in the world. And as reports go, supposedly there have been at least 300 UFO sightings every year since the 90s.
Okay, we're talking 90s now. So, I mean, technology wasn't that far behind. And we're getting so many sightings up until like current times. So what's up? Who's like, why are we not getting out there? Photographers, they're dropping the ball out here. Okay. They're out here. They got the cameras they love talking about. All right, where all the little exposure settings and your filters, and then you got your different lenses that you spend $800 on, and it's like the aperture is so perfect. All right, so do your job, get on this bridge, start taking photos.
Listen, the 90s were the time for aliens, ghosts, and all sorts of creatures to come out of the woodwork because we, as a society, dropped the ball on film and said, let's go to digital way too early. It does not have the visual fidelity necessary to capture us. And so we're out there with fuzzy big feet and blurry UFOs.
Yeah.
But now, I mean, we got these 4K no excuses on our pockets. So UFOologist Malcolm Robinson, we're going to talk a lot about his quotes here in the British tabloid The Mirror, but he was kind of involved and surrounds this case a little bit. Now he says, quote, "The people of Bonnybridge have been ridiculed by the media and they are reluctant to come forward with UFO sightings over the fear of further ridicule. So the figures, in his opinion, could be a lot higher." Now, it is worth noting here, your instincts were interesting at the beginning. As with a lot of UFOs, historically speaking, that tends to combine with the idea of seeing little gray men run around, you know, those giant black eyes, big heads, tiny bodies. But in this case, it is worth noting that there was no known sightings of aliens, simply UFOs, bright lights, things in the sky, right? The unidentified flying object, and abductions, or people passing out. So I want to ask the question, Fredo, before we move on. Does this lend credibility to the sightings in your mind, or do you think that aliens seeing a little physical entity of some kind is necessary as a component to UFOs?
I don't feel like you necessarily need to see an alien. I still feel like if aliens were to visit, they wouldn't necessarily just jump out the ship, you know? I think it's the ship itself. And then from there, it's like, well, how do you have credibility to that? You know, it could be like a future technology, you know, like a stealth bomber, and, you know, and then like it just hasn't been classified yet. I think it'd be a ship doing things that are far beyond what we think is humanly possible.
Right.
I think that's the best kind of way to go about it. I'm sure the government has a ton of technology. Like, I would love to see the level of camouflage that the military has now and how small and precise that can be. And I'm sure that transfers over to whatever they're testing. But I mean, there's still things like starts pulling stuff through a beam of light. You go, okay, well, it could be government, but probably not,
Right,
That's probably something
that's strange.
That's pretty strange. Like, that one's worth talking about. As opposed to like, we just have this oval type ship with a bunch of lights and I go, okay, well, maybe not, but still something to like earmark for sure.
Yeah. If you look to your left and you see a prop plane with about 20 LCD TVs duct taped to it, and they're all playing like clouds ambiance, and that's their stealth. But then you see over here a silver orb that can raise cows by a beam of light. There's a dichotomy there.
There really is. Come to think about it, if aliens wanted to be super stealthy and they didn't have the ability to fully camouflage, I mean, come down, take some pictures of our aircrafts, and I'm sure it's easy for them to kind of like, if they have the technology to traverse space, kind of just go, we built our technology into their kind of craft, and then you can just fly around and people just think it's like a fighter jet.
You talk about Transformers right now?
Oh, I mean, kind of, yeah, actually.
You talk about UFOs flying down, scanning trucks and becoming Megatron and driving around?
No. I'm saying that like if robots came down and scanned what we had and instantly transformed into it, that's too much. But if they came down, took pictures, went back, and then made like their ships look like ours,
like an uncanny
makes
valley.
more sense.
Okay, I subscribe to that. That's so funny. You did stumble backwards into reverse engineering Transformers.
I did.
But this is what's so interesting to me because, I talked a little bit about government hearings, and at some point I want to collate all that information and make a hell of an episode. But they talk a lot now about UAPs, which moves away from necessarily talking about a flying object and more about things happening in the air that could be an entity, a craft, ball lightning, a natural phenomenon, And that's why it's so interesting to me that these hearings center around UAPs, because now the discussion has broadened to involve what's called plasmoids. It's talking about advanced creatures from the ocean. It's talking about like these clouds that basically have little lights in them that look like jellyfish in the sky. And man, it's just wild. It is a good time. We're all eating good if you're a UFO fiend like I am.
Very true. It's just like, I also kind of feel like the world's becoming a little desensitized, where just like we're getting trickle fed.
That means we're
all
ready.
These different things. And it's just like, everyone's like, oh yeah, sure. I don't really believe it. I feel like if it was to be aliens and, there could be this timeline where we hit this sweet spot where we have tangible stuff, but it's not too believable. And so there could be like a year or two where we know that there's aliens, but we just don't quite believe it. And so it's not until there's a big pop that happens, which is kind of weird to think about. So it could be now.
It could be now. There's a whole group of people out there going, yeah, that's been the last 70 years, pal.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I don't know if I joined that camp.
But you're right. I mean, it does feel like it's obviously, there's more footage happening. That doesn't mean it's all valid, but it means that more stuff is being seen. It's more in the zeitgeist. It's more on the top of mind. UFO, UAP hearings are happening. And so does that validate it? Does it not? I don't know, but it's very fascinating. But coming back to the idea of Bonnybridge, this area around it, of course, has been referred to as the Falkirk Triangle. Of course, with a lot of paranormal locations, hotspots, things of that nature, they do tend to kind of gravitate to the triangular spot that it all kind of takes place in. This is where all these sightings pour out from. This is where a lot of these encounters we're going to talk about come from. Though depending on the source, the Falkirk Triangle is roughly drawn between Bonnybridge, Stirling, and Falkirk. Over time, many believe that the triangle has expanded to include bigger cities like Edinburgh, Glasgow, but also Stirling. So the triangle has kind of opened up a little bit to fold in a few of the other sightings that have fallen outside of the smaller version. But either way, we're talking about a very focused triangular area in the lower third of Scotland. And this broader area, this triangle, is a little bit more populated, obviously, than just Bonnybridge, with an estimated of 165,000 people living within this area. That's not including Edinburgh and Glasgow. That's a lot more people, but kind of more in the center. So Bonnybridge is at the heart of these stories, making it known as Scotland's Roswell. Of course, we got to make everything something's Roswell because it's just so well known. Of course, we covered that case. but it is right in the middle of this triangle, and it's also the epicenter of the encounter that really set off this UFO mania. This particular sighting actually happened in 1992, so let's talk about it. When driving between Falkirk and Bonnybridge, James Walker claimed he saw a star-shaped object blocking the country road. Now, some versions of this story state that Walker actually saw what he thought were stars at night up in the sky, and those stars moved to form a triangular shape, a very common UFO shape. You know, you have the saucer, the plate with an upturned teacup on it, like you say.
Yeah.
You got the triangle with lights, and then you have what we're going to talk about later in this episode. Actually, the third most common I see is the cigar shape. So this one's interesting, triangle or star. Now, he said it shined brightly, hovered over the ground for some time, and right before he tried to drive around it, it flew away at incredible speed. The next year, Falkirk councillor Billy Buchanan held a public meeting to discuss Walker's experience as well as those from around the area. So it's worth mentioning that Billy Buchanan actually became a councillor in the area in 1992. So he is a fresh councillor, and this might be an interest of his own, but to me, this is what put a spotlight on these experiences, and what sparked the whole UFO mania is not only James Walker's experience, but the perfect storm of Billy Buchanan bringing it into the local government, shining a spotlight on this, and making it part of the conversation throughout this area of Scotland.
Oh, okay. Yeah, bringing everything to light, kind of.
Kind of taking it at face value and investigating it, saying, like, what happened here? Let's get to the bottom of this, because this doesn't feel right. And if it is something tangible, if this is even the government, let's get to the bottom of it, is what he's kind of thinking.
That's the way to approach it if you're going to try and get anyone to believe you or kind of, assist you. Because the minute someone goes, aliens, I know it, people are going to go, okay. But if you're like, hey, there's something weird happening here.
Yeah.
Who wants to join me? People are way more likely to take part in that,
Yeah. Now, ever since this event, over the last 30 years, Buchanan has reached out multiple times to several different prime ministers to try to get assistance with these alien disturbances. He never got a response directly from a prime minister. Now, per the Herald, a Scottish newspaper, Buchanan has claimed that half the town in Bonnybridge has seen a UFO at some point. So to him, he's doing his diligence of saying, okay, listen, if half the town is seeing something, we gotta get to the bottom of it. As opposed to what others might do, which is confirmation bias and then kind of waving their arm. We'll talk about that later.
There's something heartwarming with oh, okay, half the town says they've seen something, as opposed to being the one or two people that are we saw it,
Sure. You're like, I'm not the odd one out. Don't judge me.
If the three of us saw something, it would feel so contained. And I feel like we'd have so much energy, and we'd want to have people to experience and feel how we feel, in a way, if it's nothing too terrible.
And that's the feeling you get in the task force.
That's true.
At patreon.com/redweb. And you too can feel that energy.
Look, when you sign up for everything. What comes with it?
I mean, seriously.
Yeah, but in all honesty, you do. That means being on the, on the ground floor with us behind you, but leading you forward. That's how we'll look at it.
We lead from a safe distance.
Yeah, someone's got to keep track of this stuff. But yeah, I mean, there's this. I think it's heartwarming to in a sense where half the town's yeah, I've seen it, I get it.
Absolutely. I mean, that goes two ways, and I don't want to get ahead of myself. We'll talk about the psychological theory behind all of this later on. But I do agree. I believe that if you're in an area that other people have also seen it, you're more likely to come forward to share your experience. You don't feel like you're going to be an outcast or judged. So yeah, there is something to that camaraderie that would otherwise be quite rare.
Oh yeah, and I'm sure there's, well, like with everything, there's a yin and a yang. So there's a negative side to everyone saying that they do too.
Now, of course, we all know the Pentagon revealed a UAP report back in 2021, and this spurred Buchanan to call on the British government to do the same. Of course, this isn't the only paranormal thing happening in the UK, and so the call for asking the government to reveal something is definitely worth trying. But as with any government entity, it's going to be heavily redacted. If they are reverse engineering advanced ships from the ocean or from space, and they don't know what other governments have and whatever, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
there's not going to be a lot of honesty happening, but they might say, don't fret. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And then from there, everyone's spiraling, going, oh, they know.
Right. Read between the lines, what to believe. But this is where I actually want to take us back a little bit, because there was another encounter that happened back in the late 70s that I think is so cool. It's such a vivid encounter, and this is what I live for. And I want to analyze it a little bit. And it has been brought into the Falkirk Triangle a little bit because it is in that area. But it was before the UFO mania really took off, like I said, in 1992. This happened in the general area of the Triangle. This was Bob Taylor's experience, and it's considered to be one of the most notable UFO sightings of Scotland. So on November 9th, 1979, Bob Taylor, who was a forester, was inspecting an area on Decment Law in Livingston. This is roughly 15 miles southeast or 24 kilometers southeast of Bonnybridge. Now, he worked for Livingston Development Corporation and was tasked with making sure livestock did not find their way into the newly planted woods in the area. Didn't want, sheep eating up brand new shrubbery before it could grow into trees and things. So at 10:30 in the morning, he parks his car along the M8 motorway. It's one of the most well-traveled highways or roadways between Edinburgh and Glasgow. And he starts moving towards the hill that's known as Decment Law, and he's doing his thing, checking the fences, making sure livestock doesn't seem to be out of place. And this hill was only about 100 meters from the road. I don't think he ever made it to the hill, because along his path, he saw what he described as a flying dome hovering over the ground. The object was gray and metallic with a sandpaper-like texture, something like I would say like a brushed nickel maybe, so it's not chrome. He said it was 20 feet wide, and that's according to his obituary, though other sources claim that this thing was a lot smaller, at about 20 to 30 feet in circumference. Divide that by pi, and that would be your new diameter. So, I don't know, somewhere where it's like 5 to 7 feet in diameter. So, like a personal craft.
Yeah, very tiny.
Yeah. And they also say in these other sources that it was floating about 15 feet off the ground or so. Now, he said the air smelled like something burning. And suddenly, while he was staring in awe, this dome dropped towards the ground and released 2 spheres with spikes. And I do have a sketch of what he saw and what those spheres with spikes are. Those are images A that I want you to take a look at.
What the hell? All right, so they're violent.
Yeah, dude, I've never heard anything like this.
Whoa.
What are you seeing?
First off, the UFO looks like some kind of bowler hat.
It does.
With some stilts on the side, 4 to be exact.
Mm-hmm.
And then it looks like it's dropping water mines.
Dude, it's so funny you say that, because later when recounting this story, Taylor compared those to sea mines. That's exactly what he said.
Yeah, that's exactly what it looks like. Interesting. Oh,
yeah.
Look at his sketch. Also, he sketched that? Damn.
I mean, it's got nice shading.
Yeah.
I bet it took about 15 minutes to finish the shading on those spheres. But seriously, it looks like it has pitot tubes. It has those little round windows. But yeah, shaped like a bowler hat. It's very fascinating.
I mean, it's a uniquely drawn spaceship. It's not quite what you think is traditional.
Yeah, like it's familiar, but different. Task Force, if you want to take a look at this, as always, on our social media and the kind of video version of the podcast over on YouTube. But yeah, these spikes came out of the craft, and this is where I, no joke, was talking about pants. So the spike balls then rolled towards him at a high speed, and he turns to run away as fast as he can, but it doesn't really matter because these spike balls catch up with him pretty quickly and get snagged up on his pants. He falls to the ground, and he wakes up 20 minutes later hearing a hissing noise. He's still outside, still laying on the ground. However, the large hovering object and these spike balls are gone. Taylor reportedly couldn't walk at this time. He's still coming to, his car's not too far away, so he crawls on the ground to get to his car, only to discover that it wouldn't start. So he then takes a beat, musters himself, stands up, and as the story goes, he walks home. It is interesting to note, you might have heard a very quick inconsistency that I also flagged, because this is coming from him and it's in his obituary. He said he couldn't walk, crawls to his car, it won't start, so he walks home. That kind of jumped out to me, but the BBC actually reports slightly differently. They say when he got to his car, it did manage to start. However, he later drove it or crashed it into a ditch.
Oh.
Either way, his wife said that when he got home, he was covered in mud and injured. He had ripped clothes and he seemed very shaken. Ever since, Taylor's experience has been dubbed the Decment Law Encounter or the Livingston Encounter. Police actually deemed this encounter an assault, but could not explain what had happened to Taylor that day. they actually did visit the scene of this encounter, and there they found indentations in the ground at the clearing, which they then marked down. They drew this on paper, kind of sketched out where these indentations would be, and I do have an image of that for you to react to, but it kind of lines up with the stilts that you were talking about, and at the bottom of those stilts, like, there's 4 of them, like one in each corner, so to speak, and between the pair of them is almost like a ladder shape, if that makes sense. Like there's like monkey bars hanging between the 2 of them.
Oh.
But in total, if you want to take a look at that sketch, there were 32 holes, each of them 3.5 inches in diameter.
Whoa.
But none of them matched any known machinery operating in the area.
Interesting. Yeah, it's a circle and there's a ton of holes.
Mm-hmm. According to the Scotsman, scientists who examined the pants claimed that the tears could not have come from anything in the forest, right? Thorns, branches, things like that, but rather something mechanical pulling them upwards. Taylor has since moved away from the area after this encounter. Now, this is where, as I was talking to Jillian about this specific thing, I was very curious if there was any evidence, right? Photographs of the pants of this guy, photographs of the site, and unfortunately, there just isn't a lot. And in the late stage of investigating and researching this, we actually stumbled into the idea that, well, BBC is actually reporting the car did start. And that created one tiny inconsistency that made me wonder, and maybe I'm being a cynic, you know I want to believe, but what if, unfortunately, he just crashed his car into a ditch, and this was the story he explained to his wife? Could it be why he was muddy and his pants were torn?
Oh, interesting.
Again, the police went on site and saw these indentations. Something happened there. And so, again, you're going to see this with this case. There is so much room for the believer, and there's so much room for the skeptic. And I think that's what makes this case, just I want to take a bite out of it.
Take a bite out of it.
It's juicy.
So, like, he didn't want to get in trouble from his wife?
That's my cynical theory, right?
Yeah,
like,
yeah, for sure.
What would motivate him to say, my car didn't start? That's it. But then it actually shows up that his car's in a ditch and his pants are torn and he's muddy. You know, maybe he just wants to hide the truth, or maybe he's embarrassed.
True.
That's pulling together a few things here, but very curious. But then, what are all these holes?
I don't know. I mean, it's still a bunch of holes. It'd be a pretty elaborate lie.
Yeah. Again, this is 1970s. So Task Force, hit us up in the Discord. If you have any theories, I'd love to read them. This episode of Red Web is sponsored by Aura Frames. Task Force, it is the holiday season, and isn't it funny how the people that we love most in our lives are often the most difficult to shop for? Well, luckily, I've got a present for you, and that's one gift that everyone in your family is going to enjoy for sure, an Aura digital picture frame. They have been named #1 by Wirecutter, and Aura frames make it incredibly easy to share unlimited photos and videos directly from your phone to the frame. And when you give an Aura picture frame as a gift, you can personalize it and preload it with thoughtful messages, photos, things like that, using the Aura app, making it the ideal present for anybody in your life, especially the long-distance loved ones. It's a gift so special, they'll use it every single day. I know we do here in our house. We have several Aura picture frames, and we love it because it's a rolling slideshow of friends, family, loved ones, etc. And anytime I take a trip, or my parents take a trip, because they also have one, we share photos, and so we have this constant update of slideshows and memories, and it's just really nice. Sometimes I'll just sit there and look at some of the photos that go by because I always get surprised by what my family puts in there, and we do the same thing to them. Save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $35 off Aura's best-selling Carver matte frames by using the promo code REDWEB at checkout. Again, that's AURA frames.com with promo code REDWEB. You're going to get $35 off, and this deal is exclusive to you, Task Force, so get yours now in time for the holidays. Terms and conditions apply. This episode of Red Web is sponsored by Privacy Hawk. Having your data exposed can be quite unsettling. I know that feeling, and there's a lot of breaches all the time, it seems. And knowing your private information is out there for anyone to access or buy leads to serious safety concerns and privacy violations. It's just deeply unsettling. Privacy Hawk's free scan searches thousands of websites and databases to show you who has your data and helps you take action. Your personal information can be on more than 80 different sites at any given time, including people search sites, places you likely don't even know exist out there. There's new websites websites all the time, and Privacy Hawk sends formal requests on your behalf to data brokers so that your information isn't shared or sold even further. The Platinum plan gives you the extra protection like dark web alerts and data breach monitoring, so you know right away if your data is exposed. I actually use Privacy Hawk because I enjoy the service that they provide. I mean, they go out, find all of these services, show you where your data is at with the click of a button, right? I tap the screen and they say, we are requesting it taken down for you. And there's constantly, it's like this game of whack-a-mole where there's constantly new websites wanting to put your personal information, your phone numbers, whatever out there. And they're on your side, knocking them down for you and letting you know when they do it. They even scan to see if your family members and peripheral members of your life are also exposed so you can let them know. See where your data is exposed and take steps to stay safe online and protect your privacy. Download the app, get a free privacy scan, and use code RED20 for a special price on the Privacy Hawk Platinum subscription. That's promo code RED20 once you download the Privacy Hawk app. But with that, I think we got to jump back into 1992 because, again, this is when that UFO fascination really kicks off. There's a few other stories that happened that year. Before we then jump into slightly more modern times, there's a few more sightings, and then, of course, the theories that attempt to answer what's going on here. So in 1992, the very same year as Walker's experience, other citizens reported sightings of UFOs as well. In March, the Sloggett family saw a blue, basketball-sized light while they were on a walk towards Bonnybridge around 7 p.m. We couldn't find exactly what night it was, but it was towards the evening, and this was reported in the Mirror. They said this light made a kind of whirring sound and that it swooped down into a field, and they ran to catch up with it, but when they did, they were met with a blinding light. Isabella Sloggett said, quote, "My daughter Carol and I saw a UFO land right in front of us. A door opened and there was a howl-like sound. I screamed and ran off terrified." And that's the end of the quote. And again,
Dang, without her daughter?
that's what I'm saying. You didn't specify.
You didn't specify that you ran away with your daughter.
He's like, she's like, oh yeah, and Carol's with the aliens now.
Yep.
But this was reported in the Daily Record, and they claim that this UFO, so they saw the light pulled them in kind of like an anglerfish, and then the UFO itself was the size of a house. So we have a full spectrum of size right now.
Yeah. I mean, why would aliens have one size vehicle? We have different types of transportation sizes, you know? But if you're talking about the other one being a more personal vehicle, then yeah, I'm sure there's a bigger one, right?
Yeah. Or even kind of like you were indicating, like a drone, something that's just advanced technology maybe on its own, kind of putzing about. It doesn't have to be that big. So on August 27th, 1992, you have another encounter between two friends, Gary Wood and Colin Wright. They were driving from Edinburgh to Tarbrax. And at approximately 10 to 11 p.m. that night, they passed the Harperig Reservoir and saw a 30-foot shiny black object with a round bottom floating above them with no visible lights emanating from it. They claimed that they blacked out for 10 to 15 seconds, and then when they checked their watch, it seemed that a full hour had passed at that point. Another source, the Edinburgh Live, says that they arrived at their destination, and what should have taken 30 minutes actually took the 2 hours. And so there's lost time here where they felt like they kind of blinked, or they felt like they had a state of confusion for just a few seconds, but then time just kind of slipped. And this feels very reminiscent of what Bob Taylor experienced back in the 70s, where for 20 seconds he felt like he just fell down and woke up, but then the thing was gone. He was kind of all torn up.
Right.
And so we don't know what happens in these moments. You gotta hope that the probe doesn't come out.
But you gotta hope. You gotta hope that in your sleeping state, you keep it real tight, you know? Like, you got a lot of sweatpants.
Listen, bring out the MRI, bring out the CAT scan, the x-rays. You got a lot of data from the outside.
You got a lot of data. I'm also thinking about like the next Red Web pants drop. There's just like uncuttable little portion right next to you. Right next
Just
to
metal
your booty.
pants?
No,
Oh
just
my
like right where your little butthole is. Just like it's thicker. It's like uncuttable fabric. You know, it's like
Yeah, you're talking about the
anti-alien probe like sweatpants.
You're talking about
or
like
something.
like Christmas pajamas where they got that butt flap from all the 80s
but
cartoons,
Our
but
flap
instead
though is uncuttable.
it's uncuttable and it's bolted.
It's bolted, so it's like anti-alien probing pants.
I love the idea of bolted pants that it's still cotton,
Yeah,
but it's got metal bolts.
There's
in
got to
it.
be some material out there that you can't really cut up. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
It's gotten out of hand.
Now, they eventually bring their story to Malcolm Robinson, who told the Mirror, quote, days after the incident, both men found scars on their body that weren't there before. The story has been dubbed the A70 incident since that was the major road that they were traveling on. A 2-page report on the event is actually held at the Ministry of Defense. So take that as you will. Does it validate, or is it just for the record? In a 1996 interview, Gary himself actually claimed, quote, I saw 3 creatures coming towards my car. I felt intense pain like an electric shock. Then I was in some room. I saw these things like wee men moving about, doing something to me. I could only see up. Then this 6-foot creature approached. It was white-gray in color with a large head and dark eyes with a long, slender neck, very slim shoulders and waist. There were either ribs or folds in the skin of its body, and the arms were like ours, but there were 4 very long fingers. End quote.
No, I don't like that. I don't like the long fingers.
No. There's something like very deeply uncanny about so many aliens. Just the proportions are all wrong.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that, if you talk to like alien or extraterrestrial experts, all the talk could be due to their environment, the gravity of their home world, or, a lot of times you see that they're really skinny, scrawny, maybe even malnourished looking, but their brains are big. And that's just because they're so smart that they've developed the tools and haven't had a need for much physical activity.
Yeah. That's a fascinating idea.
Yeah, so it's like so many cool little ideas as to why the proportions look the way they are for aliens. Not just people want to make them look different, but not, but kind of human-like. So it's understandable, not just like a blob with eyes.
Dude, that's pretty crazy, actually. Yeah, but that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, there's reasoning as to why the proportions are the way they are, which is very fascinating.
Yeah. I also heard recently about the black eyes that a lot of aliens supposedly have. You know how they have those big eyes, but they're always solid black?
Yeah.
Apparently, it's coming out now that a lot of people are like, oh, those are contacts. They put in like sunglasses contacts because they have such sensitivity to light. And that kind of builds on what you're saying. You fly through space, you live in space, and you need minimal light. I don't know what kind of sensitive or like what, I don't know. Like, do you need low light vision then? Or do you see more on a certain spectrum of the energy wavelength that isn't visible light? Like, that was also just a really cool thing that I've been hearing more about with these UAP hearings and things.
Dude, that's so true.
But then I saw a video that I don't know, it's got to be fake, right? But it gives you a visual to that idea where they pull the contact off and then it's like just some giant normal eye. And I'm like, no, put it back. Honestly, these creepy solid black eyes, I got used to that.
Yeah.
If I see a pupil and iris going on and that giant eye,
it'd be a little weird. It'll be a little weird.
Right. And what if they're beautiful too, What if I start seeing constellations in there and I start seeing the Pleiades and I start going, oh my God, I'm in love.
And then you fall in love.
I don't want to fall in love with an alien. I can't do that again.
Not again, man. Not again. This guy, he has a thing for falling in love with aliens. Causes trouble for the task force every time.
Every time, dude. But I get good evidence. So here's the thing. To kind of wrap this all up, the two did undergo separate sessions of hypnosis. And under hypnosis, they still gave the very same story. Of course, could be pseudoscience. I don't want to play my opinion too hard until we get to the theories, but there's a lot to dissect when it comes to hypnosis. And just because they gave the same story doesn't mean it definitely happened, but it is very interesting. Now, moving forward, of course, over the years, there have been countless sightings. People have said that it's been hundreds per year, and most have not received a full investigation. But I want to talk about at least a few. But before we get there, I do want to say that throughout the 90s, tensions were starting to rise a little bit. According to the Herald, after Walker's story, after the Sloggett sighting, panic began to set in. So it doesn't just become this euphoric UFO mania that people are excited to say, I've seen things. Mm-hmm. The government is actually saying, hey, let's calm down a little bit. Let's not get in over our heads. But Buchanan did, in 1994, invite Malcolm Robinson into the fold. And that could be what fueled things more. I mean, that's why we're hearing so much from him, to the point where citizens began protesting and begging for answers throughout the 90s. So you have this spread, not only people saying, like, I've also seen things, but other people saying, I need answers, because this is actually really unsettling to have so many people saying there's things in our backyard, especially if you're not one of the people seeing anything.
Right.
Or knowing what it is.
Yeah, because then at that point, it's like, tell me, let me know. Is this something I should be worried about? Like, if everyone's seeing this stuff, like, Jesus.
Right. Like, just tell me, do I need to worry, or should I start digging a bunker? right?
Yeah.
Or when can I stop paying taxes?
True.
That's the new meta. But moving forward in time, in 2004, a number of Bonnybridge citizens reported seeing a cigar-shaped craft land in a golf course. Interestingly, like I've said before, we've seen that cigar shape before. In fact, that is the prominent description of the episode we covered just a few weeks ago. The citizens of Varginha, Brazil also claimed that what landed in their area only 1996, just 8 years prior, was also cigar-shaped. Then in 2007, Bonnybridge local Craig Malcolm told The Scotsman, a local newspaper, that he had seen over 180 UFOs across 15 years and had over 18 hours of footage, some of that being uploaded to the internet. Someday, Fredo, I might sit down with you and we can do like a watch along and kind of react to some of what he's got.
Yeah.
But this is what he had to say, quote, "Since 1991, I've seen triangles, tubes, spheres, cigar-shaped objects, lights, and colors. A couple of years ago, I was in the car with my dad and we both saw a cigar-shaped object hovering nearby. Suddenly, 2 balls of light came from it and moved towards us. I just thought, I'm out of here." And I'm like, that's pretty calm. I mean,
what
for
a calm,
reaction.
just like, yeah, I thought, no, not today.
Yeah. No, I said, nah, Dad, turn this around. But it does match. You know, and again, it's 2007, could be with hindsight, could be backwards creating a story, who knows? But he does have a lot of interesting footage, and it is all, I believe, on VHS just based on how it looks. And I do have a screenshot from one of his films, December of 2000. I have that for you now. But a lot of this footage was sent to the Ministry of Defense in the National Archives UK UFO collection. So, Task Force, if you're interested, that is available to go kind of peruse at your leisure. But I also want to sit down with Fredo someday, maybe here after the holidays, and kind of look at that ourselves and see what that looks like. What do you think about that screenshot?
Well, it's like, honestly, kind of looks like a car. Like car lights.
Ooh.
You have like 3 lights that are like lower middle, and then you got 2 like what look like headlights.
Yeah.
But this, I'm assuming, is in the sky.
It's in the sky. You see that fuzzy grain, that high ISO.
Yeah. Oh man. I mean, the thing is, like, you just can't tell if he's just pointing at a dark corner, you know? Why does it look like there's writing on this photo?
Writing?
Yeah, on the left side, like middle left.
This is like a Rorschach test. Are you seeing something?
I see R36 or something like that. Maybe it's there's like a 2-3 there, a VT.
I see the word no over. See, I'm just looking at grain now. Is there an actual watermark on this?
I don't know. I feel like there's like lines though. You get what I'm saying? Like if you look everywhere else, there are grains, but on the middle left, there are actual lines.
That's interesting. I don't know if I'm seeing it, but it could be, just to be fully transparent, from the screenshot, could be a watermark happening in this video.
It's a weird watermark.
It is a weird watermark, but it's a quarter century since this was taken.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, fascinating. Task Force, let us know if you see anything in that image.
Yeah, you see words?
Yeah, what does it say?
Yeah. You seeing words?
This episode of Red Web is sponsored by BetterHelp. The holidays are such a magical time of the year. Cozy nights, festive gatherings, and the excitement of all these new beginnings in the coming year. But even in the best seasons, taking care of your mental health is one of the best gifts you can give yourself. Therapy is a powerful way to build confidence, learn new coping skills, and set yourself up for success, and BetterHelp makes it simple to get started. BetterHelp is an online therapy platform that's designed for your busy life. It's flexible, convenient, and 100% online. All you have to do when signing up is fill out a brief questionnaire, and you're going to get matched with a licensed therapist. And if you're not feeling that therapist, if they're not right for you, you can switch therapists at any time at no extra cost to you. I really enjoy BetterHelp and just how approachable they make therapy. The word therapy comes with a lot of baggage. There's a lot of stigma. People don't know where to start. And BetterHelp is an excellent first step in your journey to figuring yourself out and finding resources for your personal needs. Therapy is just super important, and I really appreciate how approachable BetterHelp makes it. And if you're thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. Find comfort this December and prioritize your well-being with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/redweb today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/redweb. Get 10% off that first month. So as we come to a close on a quick crash course background of Bonnybridge, to me, the biggest question for this case is why Bonnybridge appears to be such a major hotspot for UFO sightings. It's been reported that hundreds of sightings come in every year, but it wasn't until the 90s that it really started to spread. And given the range, like I've said in detail, from vivid encounters to hundreds of maybe just, I saw a UFO, it seems that there's a lot of room for both skeptics and believers in this case. So with that, let's dive into the theories and see if we can analyze both the supernatural and earthly theories behind this strange location. Starting off hot, with the triangle. Some believe that the Falkirk Triangle is real and that at least that this area must be prone to the paranormal for some reason. This would not be abnormal, especially for us. You've got Lake Michigan's Triangle, the Devil's Triangle, Bridgewater Triangle, Bermuda Triangle, a few of which we have covered in the past. And so there is precedent for paranormal hotspots. Do they have to be a triangle? Not really.
No.
Do they happen to do something with ley lines and other potentially pseudosciences? Maybe. These are things that we don't know yet. To me, there's a lot of skepticism, but there's a lot of want. I want there to be something here, but I can't subscribe until the journals come out, the double-blind studies, and we start analyzing and breaking physics down. But with that in mind, some claim that, like many triangles and many hotspots around the world, the so-called veil between our world and others is thinner, or that in some way there is a portal here to other dimensions, which that honestly, we haven't cracked that egg open yet, but it is physically, mathematically at least, possible that other dimensions could interfere here or play around. And so maybe this just happens to be one of those spots. I don't know, but it's interesting.
It's very interesting. And it's all on the table, Again, we talk about it a lot, but the universe is huge. It's vast. It's large. And there's got to be life somewhere. It doesn't necessarily mean intelligent life, but there's got to be life somewhere. And I mean, look, we were created out of what? Space dust?
Yeah, we're stardust, baby.
Stardust, man. And so to think that there wasn't some kind of chemical reaction to make all these weird different things, it's totally possible.
I mean, if the multiverse is real, then there are infinite possibilities of infinite futures, of infinite technologies just on our Earth. And then you open up the idea of, sure, if other dimensions exist, can life be possible there? That might be beyond a definitive yes or no. But again, extrapolating theory, if it is possible, who's to say it couldn't just interfere? If there's a 2D plane, right? Think of your desktop right now, and there's life that is stuck to that. You're moving in space way beyond its perception right next to it. So the fourth dimension would be doing that in the third. So there could be a fourth dimensional entity, technology, observer right next to you, and you would just never have an idea until it poked its finger into the third.
Yeah. Yep.
So again, it's all heavy theory, but that's what I love about this kind of stuff. Because, I mean, it's not proven yet, and it's very debatable. So some people get really heated about it. But I don't know. It's what keeps these cases so fascinating for me.
Yeah. No, I completely agree.
Yeah. Now, kind of bringing it a little bit more earthly, but staying within the guise of this theory, is that, okay, so why is Bonnybridge a hotspot? If it isn't this veil or portal thing, are there other things going on? Well, some have said that the nearby town of Grangemouth may be attracting extraterrestrials to Scotland, adding to the mythos of the triangle by happenstance. So Grangemouth has a very large oil refinery. I do have a picture of it for you so you can get eyes on it. Yes, oil refineries are not unique to Scotland or honestly anywhere in the world, but a lot of people have said in this particular case, the bright lights, the steam, all of it happening at night is really strange, and it's a very unique sight to behold, and perhaps whether it's like a touristy kind of thing or a fascination or a study kind of thing, many people believe that aliens are just simply attracted to this location. And so Bonnybridge just happens to be picking up that activity as a happenstance.
Oh, yeah.
Coincidentally kind of thing.
Oh, most definitely. I mean, we look at just us humans, right? We're drawn to certain locations because I don't know, climate, or as far as what buildings are there, or just because it has more trees, there's always going to be some type of point of interest.
Yeah.
Very rarely do we travel with no destination in mind. And I'm sure if aliens are traveling light years away, they're going to have some type of plan.
Yeah. Another kind of practical idea here is that UFO believers have also pointed to the naval base in Faslane as a potential culprit. It's roughly 50 miles or 80 kilometers directly to the west of the Falkirk Triangle, and it is home to the United Kingdom's nuclear weapons arsenal. And so, maybe, again, you got the mystery coverall banner of secret government activity in play here, but maybe that's something that they're attracted to.
Yeah, I mean, look, if anyone's flying through space, it's going to be the government, right? They're going to have their priorities.
Except for that one guy who wanted to float to space on a lawn chair with balloons.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think he was very government, but he tried.
No, he tried. There was some effort there. But like the government, when they if they were to go to an alien planet, a different planet, what are they going to want to see, right? What technologies do they have that we don't have?
Honestly, that does make it more obvious. Like, why would you want to see nukes? You probably know about that. Oh, but that's our biggest weapon. Would we? I think about any government here. Yeah, we'd probably want to see somebody else's biggest weapon.
Oh, 100% we would, right? We'd want to try and benefit from as much as possible. You know, I feel like that's what we would go first over, like, what's their sustainable food source? You know what I mean? Like,
oh, that's boring. What's the drama?
What's the weapon that we can, like, take back and monetize? Or, it's just like, yeah, that's just kind of the way the world works.
Right. Whereas we take it all for granted. We're like, oil? Why do you want to know about oil? Weird.
Weird.
But with that in mind, I do want to swing into the next theory. This idea of secret government something is kind of always in play. But some believe that Bonnybridge could be the site for secret government research and testing. So, while there is no known military base or research facility within the immediate Falkirk Triangle, it's theorized that that might be exactly the point, that a top secret project wouldn't actually be public, and it kind of falls in line with the idea that Area 51 is well known because it's the look over here at Area 51, we actually have an Area 52 5 states away kind of idea.
Right, yeah.
Hidden in plain sight, or is it a distraction? Coming back to Councillor Buchanan, he is still fighting for answers from the UK government, and he told the Scotsman that his phone has been tapped, saying, quote, "I don't know who's trying to listen to me, but I do know the government isn't telling us everything. They couldn't remain completely silent on the subject, though, so a while ago, they released a statement saying, there is nothing happening in Bonnybridge that is a threat to national security. Now, what does that tell you? There's something going on, but the government is not prepared to tell us." End quote. So he's basically saying, you didn't say nothing is happening. You said nothing is happening that's worth worrying about. So I'm like, you're reading into the caveats, but I think they're trying to be very specific. But tell me what you think, Fredo. Does that mean there's room? Because if they're going to lie to you, they have no legal bounds. They're not under oath.
No.
They could just lie.
They're not. I mean, you could take it 50 different ways, right?
Yeah.
It could be a lie to protect. It could be a lie because it's a lie and they don't want people to know. But also at the same time, the levels of they lie because we're not ready for it. Like, you could argue both ways all night and day.
Yeah, true. It's interesting to me, though, when people take what the government says and try to rip it apart as if they're legally bound to say the exact truth. Like, he's saying, okay, the government is saying there's nothing happening in Bonnybridge that is a threat to national security, but that could leave room for something happening in Bonnybridge. It's just not a threat.
Right.
And I'm like, well, I mean, wouldn't they also just say like, nah, there's just nothing happening? I mean, I don't want to pretend that it's so legally, like a lawyer wrote it. I don't know.
Exactly. But also, like, why do it that way? You don't need to do it that way. You know what I mean? You could just be like, no, it's all good. It's like, why leave that in? Like, what are we going to do if like we find out that it's true? And then it's like, oh, they lied to us. It's like,
yeah,
it's like, or what? They're thinking like, well, we didn't say it was completely nothing there. It's like, what?
Yeah. I mean, let's think back to some actual things. Anytime we talk about UFOs, I invariably geek out about stealth technology, bombers and everything like that. SR-71, one of my favorite planes in existence, and these things were all being tested in kind of plain sight. And some people were seeing them at night, and whether that is all of the UFO sightings, whether it's part of it, etc., it does answer for a few things. And yeah, they were kind of lying at that time because they don't want the enemies to know, but we didn't sit there and go, see, back in this year, you lied to us, so now you, all the government, is going to jail, right? Like,
exactly.
I don't want to overly split hairs, but again, saying anything can add fuel to both fires on both sides of this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But again, just with that same thing in mind, the fact that Buchanan has been ignored for so long makes many UFO believers even more suspicious that something's being hidden. He has been responded to not by the prime ministers, but by at least one individual from the government to state that they do not consider the information to be a threat to the UK, essentially.
Okay.
Yeah. But moving on, there is another interesting theory that we've talked about before, but I do think that it has a stronger foothold in this particular area. Since most UFO sightings in the Falkirk Triangle describe moving lights, it's been theorized that residents are actually seeing what's called will-o-wisps or will-o'-the-wisp, also known to be ghost lights. There are 1,000 different explanations for this as an idea. This could be its whole episode, but the idea here is that they are disembodied lights, whether it be swamp gas, ball lightning, paranormal, ghosts, things like that. They're always kind of in play when you see mysterious lights.
Definitely different gases and their reactions. And,
Now, the term jack-o'-lantern, interestingly, was actually used originally to describe these very same lights. So these lights are usually described as light blue and extremely bright, but appear to flicker like fire. Other colors have been reported, though they're less common. They have been seen to float above water, float through the trees, often near cemeteries is claimed to be a hot spot for these kind of things. And when approached, these lights tend to move away, indicating to many that the light is actually leading them somewhere. But it could also be part of whatever illusion is happening to create this light. But again, as I mentioned, these could be many things. Ball lightning, swamp gas, bioluminescence, ghosts, perhaps aliens take a form of this nature. We just don't know. Or whatever is coming out of these UFOs themselves, whether they be intangible holograms, probes, drones of that nature, you know what I'm saying? Just some way to measure the atmosphere outside of the UFO.
it could be anything. It really could be. And I think like the big thing is, I mean, this is more back then, but I mean, like nowadays, it's like, is it going to be harder because everyone can easily have access to a drone? You know?
And drone swarms are huge, right?
Yeah.
Where you can make a light show happen. You can create pictures in the air where each drone is a pixel and they all have lights.
Yeah.
Oh, that's wild to think about.
I mean, drones are inexpensive and they're very powerful for what they do. And like, who's to say like a $3,000 drone doesn't come by that can carry a weight of like 50 pounds and someone decks that out. You know what I mean? Like,
oh man, you telling me that this drone can swoop down and take me away?
I don't know about all that. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, you got some weight on you.
Just come down like you have 4 drones just swoop down on me and suck me up.
I mean, you know, maybe like a whole army full of drones.
You know, I order something from Amazon, it drops off a book and then takes me.
That would be wild. Tell me it takes me?
Okay, now moving on to the last theory. As with many cases we've discussed on UFO sightings, we still have the deflating, unexciting, though grounded theory that folks are simply seeing things that they're looking for. The fact that there are many vivid encounters over time keeps this case interesting to me personally, but the fact that it wasn't until the sighting in 1992 that it really took hold and spread like wildfire is worth discussing. Because there's the question of, well, did that mean that this UFO activity did genuinely start picking up in the 90s? And why? And why the delay from the late 70s? Or is it something cultural, something psychological? Because it seems like most cases of this nature begin with a one-off sighting, and then suddenly a deluge of sightings come after that. That's what happened here in this case. It's what happens in other cases abroad. Even the Virginia case, where we did actually critically analyze some that came in later. And the lack of consistent evidence, despite the thousands of sightings, really feels like locals grow up ready to see something and are on the lookout perhaps. So when something happens, they're more inclined to check that box or even kind of create something in their minds that might not have been there. You know, if you're scared at night because you just watched a horror movie and the lights are off and you see your reflection in the window, your first reaction is probably to jump and think, God, it's the enemy, right?
Oh, yeah.
But then you can quickly debunk it yourself. So that's a very small example, but this concept is prevalent and repeatable throughout psychology. I have a whole list of phenomenons that kind of fill this gap. We like to say placebo effect, you know, everything's placebo. But, you know, you got confirmation bias, right? Where people tend to remember things that confirm their existing beliefs or expectations. You've probably heard of, if not by name, you've experienced it, the Bader-Meinhof phenomenon, which is, you know, you buy a new car. Let's just say you got a new red Honda Civic. Suddenly you start seeing that red Honda Civic all over the place because you're primed. Yes. And you're ready to see that, you know?
Oh, yeah. That happens all the time with cars.
And I'm sure, like, especially in this modern age, I don't know what the name would be for it, but phantom phone rings or phantom pocket phone vibrations are part of sensory hallucinations built upon habits and expectations. And so there is a world of colorful psychological experiments that fill in this gap as to well, how would that be possible? It doesn't feel real. Like, it is deflating for someone like myself who really wants it to be something crazy cool.
Yeah.
But also, like, it's worth the actual understanding of, is it something top secret from a government? Is it something interdimensional or super advanced from the oceans? Or is there a real new creature that we're just learning about called plasmoids? I mean, how long did it take us to find the giant squid? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, true.
Or is it something like this?
Yeah, it could be. You know what I mean? It's like, they're just saying you don't know that you're in the best moments of your life, and until it's past. You don't know when you're in the moment.
Yeah.
And it's just like that applies here in the sense of like, oh, when was the first time we knew that this was happening? It's like we probably didn't know it when it was actually first happening. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
There'll be, there's always a breaking point where you go, that was the moment. But it's like when you're in it, very rarely do you know that you're in it, whether it be a good moment, bad moment of discovery,
Yeah. We might be in the golden ages of feeling alone in the universe, on the threshold of going, nope, there's an intergalactic entity with a whole government system, and you owe your taxes to it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this is the case of Bonnybridge. Again, to close out, it remains a hotspot for UFO enthusiasts, believers across the world. And it certainly seems that something is happening in the lowlands of Scotland, right? People are seeing stuff. There is some tangible evidence happening here and there. But again, this case is filled with points for both sides to want to believe, to want to dig deeper and seek more.
Right.
But also to be dismissive and say, no, it's okay, it's explainable. But either way, man, this location is wild. And I didn't realize how close I was to it. I proposed to my fiance last year in Edinburgh. I should have upheaved the whole thing and said, honey, we're seeing aliens.
Yeah, we're gonna go find them aliens and get the proof.
But man, what do you think? Final thoughts on Bonnybridge?
I think it's an interesting case. I think it brought very unique takes to the whole UFO sighting.
Mm-hmm.
I love the sci-fi aspect of any story that we cover.
Oh yeah.
But also ones that aren't like, I don't know. It's cool to see that there's still famous things out there that we haven't covered. Not only that, it's like not in the US, It's like you think aliens, like it's Roswell, it's Area 51 type stuff. But like to see it, it's like, oh no, there are other places on the planet that have very popular UFO sightings as well. Is really cool to see.
Absolutely. Honestly, it wasn't really until the lead masks case that we did years ago at this point. Two very interesting individuals that disappeared. Very paranormal meets alien meets true crime there on that front. And I'm going to upload that as one of the ad-free bonuses here in December on the Patreon. But either way, it wasn't until that episode and re-solidified with the Varginha, Brazil case that I realized, Brazil, for example, is another tremendous hotspot, almost on par with the United States. The UK also has a lot of, ghost activity, but also aerial phenomenon, just something happening over there. And so you realize, like, it is very much a global phenomenon. I think it's just that the United States is so big. Mm-hmm. And honestly, there is a lot of government spend. There's a lot of top secret projects happening, but I don't know. Oh, I wanted to end on this wild thought, just thinking on that. Now that we've kind of closed out Bonnybridge, and it's more like a theory that just wildly came to me as I was falling asleep. So take it as a little unhinged. Let's just say that this is some sort of maybe alien, or what if it was like a sentient AI? And we are reverse engineering its things. It has sent us stuff. It's crashed things. Maybe it's talking with us in some way. Who knows? However we close that gap.
Right.
But the whole idea is like it's spreading like a virus. It's given itself, maybe it's treating itself like an alien, like, oh, I'm a sentient flesh being. Hello, humans. Take my goods, invent cell phones, learn about computer chips, create AI. Oh, now you've created AI. Now I've taken up all of your technology. Now I've conquered your planet. And what if just like sharing its hardware and technology with us is a way for it to spread? Is that a concept that's ever happened? Christian, have you heard about that either?
Jesus.
No, but it
Isn't that
sounds
wild?
Fascinating.
It's very fascinating.
That's what happens when you read about Marvel incursions while you're falling asleep.
Yeah, we got this guy reading deep into Marvel.
You got me
right
reading.
now.
I'm deep. I'm out there.
He's in it, man.
But I'm just like, I mean, maybe we are reverse engineering things, and maybe it's malicious.
There you go. He's in it, bro. He's in it.
Maybe we should have stayed playing hoop and stick.
He's in it, dude. I mean, yeah. It could be just, why are we so smart to think such things? Could be much bigger than us.
We're just the apes at the beginning of 2001: A Space Odyssey, smashing bones and yelling. And the monolith from some unknown entity comes and rattles our brains. I'm looking for. Okay, listen, Marvel, Black Swan, come talk to me. Let's figure this out. I'm out there ready to talk.
Dude, that's a deep cut reference. There's gonna be a Marvel nerd out there going, "Oh, the Black Swan never knows."
That was for 3 people.
Yeah.
2 of
And
them
you are
are
2 of them.
recording. Yeah.
Those people are very happy though, very proud, very proud.
All right. Well, again, I love getting into the weeds on these UFO episodes, and eventually I want to talk about like these UAP hearings and things.
Once we get enough and collect enough.
Yeah. I mean, there is a lot out there. It's honestly, Task Force, it's just a lot to digest on our end. But with that said, this has been another fascinating case. We have many like this to cover still. So if you like hearing about these in particular, let us know. Let us know if there's any hot spots or cases you want us to talk about. Again, over at Patreon or over on our Discord, we have ways that you can recommend episodes. But Fredo, I will see you next Monday for our last episode of Red Web for 2024.
Woo!